The following is presented by the Cheeky Bastards.
Brace for impact, buckaroos, because your skulls are about to take a gargantuan blast of action-packed jackassery to the fucking ear holes. And audio exposure so mind-numbing extreme protective headwear should be mandatory to listen to this level of inane horseshit. So lock and load, buttercups, and prepare your tiny minds for your monthly assault of grade A action movie mayhem, filled with enough high-octane carnage, insane shootouts, and nose-busting fisticuffs that Michael Bay himself would weep like the little product placement bitch that he is. Now duck and cover my little cupcakes because it's time for the Men of Action podcast, a show packed with enough testosterone-filled bravado it could take down a small nation. So here are your hosts, those cheeky bastards themselves. From America, it's the notorious Scott K, and from England, it's the cynical Mr. Smith. They may be secret meat, but you can bet your ass they're packing some serious fucking heat. Shit's about to get explosive.
Heidi-ho, you slack-jawed sons of bitches, and welcome to the Men of Action podcast. I'm the notorious Scott K.
And my name is Mr. Smith.
And we will be your cheeky, cantankerous, opinionated hosts on this monthly action-filled quest as we pit two kick-ass action movie sequels up against one another in a no-holds-fucking-barred battle to the death to not only see which one truly reigns supreme, but if either is actually worthy of being a fucking sequel in the first place. On tap for us this month is a sci-fi action sequel showdown as 1990's RoboCop 2 squares off against 1990's Predator 2. But before Steve viciously removes the criminal element from the city of Detroit and I face down the ugliest motherfucker in the galaxy, it is my pleasure to welcome in my cheeky co-host, Mr. Steve Smith.
Hello, Scott, and hello, everybody out there in internet land.
And I come to you from the new offices of the Men of Action, the Cheeky Bastards, as I have relocated, still in America, not left yet, but you never know.
Not that lucky.
Yes, and that's why as you listen to this a couple weeks ago, I just released a week later our last episode as just the scheduling of editing and trying to move. I could not keep up, so it will have been out 3 weeks ago. So actually you'll get extra stuff. You will have gotten the Men of Action followed immediately by the following week, dropping a Bruce. 2 weeks later, boom, we're back in your ear holes with what I like to say, a nice warm blanket of nostalgic action movies.
Yes.
As we have the pleasure of discussing the sequels to two of the greatest 80s action movies ever in RoboCop and Predator. And when I think of action movies, it is these action flicks from the 80s and early 90s that, in my opinion, are the golden age of action. How do you feel about said statement by the Rev?
Yeah, no, I think you're right there. I mean, that's sort of what, but I would push it back to, we're talking like late 80s to 93.
Yeah, maybe mid. Yeah. 93. 93 sounds fair.
Maybe about 93 is when
fair.
it all kind of changed, but
yeah, you could say maybe Die Hard helped to start move that needle a little bit, and then obviously movies like Pulp Fiction, and then the renaissance of the independent movies, just like we've talked about with also grunge changing hair metal. There was a big shift in the early 90s, and then moved the old stuff for the 80s that we knew and completely changed it, which I think is also a good thing. They were starting to get stale and stagnant.
yeah, like Die Hard was like a step in the right direction, elevated things, made a much needed change, and for a few years that was a good thing.
Yes.
And then things went haywire.
Yes. But I haven't seen these movies in decades, and I think I have a newer appreciation for them now, older, which is interesting. I have a different view on them than I normally do. Normally it's like you remember something nostalgic, you look at it later on, you're kind of like, I don't know, maybe I was a kid who drank too much Kool-Aid back in the 80s and the sugar affected my brain.
Yeah,
but
well,
this one I don't remember. Obviously both of these sequels have their good and their bad things in them, but
true.
I think they were actually more enjoyable than I remember them being. So actually, it was one of the first times in a while that I've enjoyed the double feature that I did this past this weekend that we record on.
Right. Well, I think when it comes to movies like this, I'm a lot more forgiving with this sort of movie. Action movies are just fun, even when they're not great.
I would agree.
So you've got the heavy hitters that we all know.
Yes, you do.
And like you say, sequels to those movies that were like the Die Hards and the Rambos and the whatnot and and the Predators, and even if they're not great, they're very watchable. They are right. They're formulaic, but that's not always a negative.
True. There's a reason it's a formula. It works. If it works, it works.
Exactly. You know, people, that's got negative connotations that we are.
James Bond has over 20 films. Yes?
I think 20.
20 plus?
25?
Yeah. And are they not similar formulas, right? We put James Bond in a new scenario of having to save the world and some sexy woman, and they keep making them because they still work.
That shit works. And I think, well, you know, not to tangent, but the Craig Bonds were a lot like Die Hard, okay? Where they said, right, look, we've been going around in circles, much like action movies were going around in circles, then Die Hard elevated things. Bond movies for decades have been and this is just one franchise, you know, that I'm talking about. They've been going around in circles for years and years and years. And then Craig comes along and it's like, we really need to up our game because action movies are more sophisticated now, you know, with the Bournes and whatnot and the Mission Impossible.
Which we might be getting into sooner than later.
But we'd previously discussed that when we talked about the Mission Impossibles and Bond. You know, these movies they've changed things, and we need to change with it because we can't get by doing the same old shit anymore. And these films that we're going to discuss today, one of them I hadn't seen since I saw it for the first time, which would be RoboCop 2.
I think that may be the same for me because I cannot, you know, my memory's not what it used to be, but I really can't remember seeing the last 30 plus years.
Yeah, and easily. Predator, when I picked up the 4K box set, which took us to the Thomas Jane one. This was pre-Prey. I then thought, I'm going to watch them all. So I did watch Predator 2 within the last 5 years or 4 years even.
Okay.
So I was more familiar with that than RoboCop 2.
Well, on that note, it is now time for us to light the fires and kick the fucking tires on our main event.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for, our sci-fi action sequel, Showdown main event. In the red corner is the 1990 sci-fi action film, RoboCop 2. And in the blue corner is the 1990 sci-fi action film, Predator 2. So get ready for a no-holds-barred head-to-head collision of two sci-fi action sequel stalwarts. Two movies enter, only one movie leaves. It's time for the Men of Action movie, Face Off.
Let's get ready to rumble!
As you know, this season, we have been taking a look at some of the numbers behind each of the franchises we discussed. And up first this month is the RoboCop franchise. Now to date, the RoboCop franchise has 4 installments and 4 spin-off TV series. RoboCop was created by Michael Miner and Edward Neumeier. RoboCop came out in 1987, RoboCop 2 in 1990, RoboCop 3 in 93, and then the RoboCop reboot came out in 2014. Now, as of 2019, a new installment titled RoboCop Returns was in the works and would serve as a direct sequel to the 1987 original film, bypassing all renditions since. The script was being written by franchise creators Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner, with Neil Blomkamp originally signed on to direct, but he left the project, and then Abe Forsyth is the last known name selected to direct the project. In 2020, after much will he or won't he return, Peter Weller did announce he would return in the role of RoboCop, since it is the only role people really know him for. However, in 2023, Abe Forsyth announced he had left the project due to an element in the script that will keep this film from ever being made. Also in 2023, Amazon acquired MGM and said they wanted RoboCop to be one of the company's priorities, and in April of that year announced they were developing a RoboCop TV series and film. As of 2025, neither of them have come to light yet. Now, this franchise has had 4 TV spin-off series, an animated one that ran in 1988, a live-action series entitled RoboCop that ran in 94, a second live-action series entitled RoboCop Alpha Commando that ran in 98 until 99, and a third live-action series entitled RoboCop Prime Directives that ran in 2001. This franchise also has 6 video games, 6 comic book series, a theme park ride, and a novel based on it. The RoboCop franchise has had 4 directors, with Paul Verhoeven helming the first film. Now, these films to date have been made on a total budget of $190 million, with a worldwide box office of $388.8 million. The RoboCop reboot is the highest grossing film of the franchise so far, with $242.7 million at the box office, while the original RoboCop holds the highest IMDb rating with a 7.6. Up next is the Predator franchise. To date, the Predator franchise has 5 installments, with 2 more planned for a 2025 release, and it has 2 crossover films that we will not discuss. Predator was created by Jim and John Thomas, with the first Predator coming out in 1987, Predator 2 in 1990, Predators in 2010, The Predator in 2018, and Prey in 2022. As I said, this year of 2025, this franchise will release an animated anthology film entitled Predator, Killer of Killers, which will actually be out in June, the following month from when you hear this show, and a live-action film entitled Predator Badlands, which will be coming out around the November timeframe of 2025. This franchise also has 2 crossover films with the Alien franchise that both franchises wish they had never actually signed on to do.
Yeesh.
This franchise has 15 novelizations, 24 limited series comic books, 6 one-shot comic issues, 13 crossover comic series, and a plethora of video games, and also a card game. The Predator franchise has had 5 directors, with John McTiernan directing the first film and Dan Trachtenberg directing the last 3 films in the franchise, to include the 2 to be released this year. The Predator franchise to date has been made on a total budget of $176 million, with a worldwide box office of $443.1 million. Now, The Predator is the highest grossing film of the franchise, with $160.5 million at the box office, while the original Predator holds the highest IMDb rating with a 7.8. And now, up first in the red corner, from 1990, it's RoboCop 2.
It's time for the tale of the tape. RoboCop 2 was released in 1990, written by Frank Miller and Waylon Green, and directed by Irvin Kershner, starring Peter Weller, Nancy Ellen, Belinda Bauer, Dana Herlihy, Felton Perry, Tom Noonan, Willard E. Pugh, Gabriel Damon, Galen Gord, Stephen Lee, Robert Ducoy, and Ken Lerner. Made on a budget of $30 million and grossing $45.7 million at the box office. It holds a 6.3 rating on IMDb and a 28 critics and 37 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On Letterboxd, Steve gives this 2 stars, while Scott gives it 3 stars. RoboCop returns to protect the citizens of old Detroit, but faces a deadly challenge when a rogue OCP member secretly creates a new evil RoboCop 2. In Orion Pictures, RoboCop 2.
About a year ago, we gave this city RoboCop.
Ready for duty, partner?
Nothing I'd rather do.
I think he's worked out pretty well.
Have a seat. This is a bust.
But things have become a little rougher out there.
This unit needs millions of dollars in parts. You see, RoboCop's off warranty.
He's one of mine, and I want him back on his feet.
I believe that Murphy's case was unusual, but not unique. We can find someone else. Someone to whom the prospect might even be desirable.
And now, we need a law enforcement unit capable of meeting the enemy on his own ground.
She's screaming psychotic, sir.
Well, we aren't planning to build a toy. I'm carrying enough firepower to get the job done.
I got good news for you. You're gonna have a chance for immortality.
With great pleasure, I give you RoboCop 2. Ah, yes. Things will be a lot quieter with this boy around.
That thing is a killer!
Kane! Let's step outside.
You're obsolete!
Take it over, creep.
Behave yourselves!
And Mr. Smith, it is your lucky day, as both films came out the same year. But since you are the older gentleman on the on the panel, you get to always go first of the older film. And this film came out in the summertime, with Predator coming out as they do with the holiday season, because nothing says Christmas like some skinning of people alive and ripping their skulls out from back. So it is your luxury and honor to let the folks know some of the behind the scenes and trivia of RoboCop 2.
Okay, ladies and gents, RoboCop 2 from 1990. He's back to protect the innocent. Now, the screenplay was written by Waylon Green and Frank Miller. Green had written the screenplay to Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, William Friedkin's masterpiece Sorcerer, and War Games. And Miller, of course, was known for his graphic novels The Dark Knight Returns, Sin City, and The 300 among them. Miller was tasked with writing the first draft, which was apparently less comic and had a bigger emphasis on corporatism than the final film, with the last showdown pitting RoboCop against OCP forces. While producer John Davison praised its grittiness, inventive action, humour and politics, Orion Pictures rejected the script as unfilmable and brought in Waylon Green to rewrite it. Paul Verhoeven turned down RoboCop 2 as he was working on another project, and that project was Total Recall, so probably a wise decision. As with the first film, multiple directors rejected offers from producer John Davison to direct, although for different reasons. Davison reported potentials were either concerned about following up Verhoeven's directing or not wanting to direct a sequel. Alex Cox, director of Repo Man, considered the project but changed his mind after watching a screening of the sequel to The Exorcist. Eventually, directing duties went to Irvin Kershner, who also directed The Eyes of Laura Mars from a screenplay by John Carpenter, a small film called The Empire Strikes Back, and the
Is that
James
any good?
Bond. I doubt it. Sequel, rubbish. And the James Bond movie Never Say Never Again in 1983. Kershner was drawn to RoboCop 2 because of its continuation of the first film's critiques of American capitalism, corporate power, and its resulting militarization. Initially, Orion was skeptical of casting Weller again, under the reasoning that audiences would find RoboCop the same if another actor was under the helmet, similar to the titular character of Universal's The Mummy. Weller himself was also skeptical about coming back. He disliked the original script, calling it a cartoon and lacking intention, that it felt not complete with the character, thinking there was something else to say with it. Ultimately, Weller returned after reading Miller and Green's screenplay. A magazine article published at the time of filming described the environment on set as hell on earth, with the cast and crew rebelling against Kershner's obsessive finickiness and costly reshoots. However, this was debunked by Weller, of all people, who said Kershner didn't delay anything. He's very, very instinctive. He had his mind made up, usually ahead of time. At the same time, though, Peter Weller was also critical of the script. RoboCop 2 didn't have a third act. I told the producers and Irvin Kershner up front and Frank Miller. I told them all. I said, where's the third act here? So I beat up a big monster. And the studio was like, no, the monster's going to be enough. I told them again that it's not enough. They went ahead with it. Sure, I had a good time making RoboCop 2, but the script did not have the code, the spine, or the soul of the first one. As you pointed out, the film was a moderate success, making around $46 million at the box office, and a further $22.5 million from home video rentals. So it had double the budget of the first one, but made pretty much the same money as the first one. So, not too bad. Rotten Tomatoes retrospectively collected 40 reviews to give the film a score of 28%, with an average rating of 4.7 out of 10. The site's consensus reads, a less satisfying rehash that generally lived down to the negative stereotype of sequels. RoboCop 2 tries to deliver more of everything and ends up giving us less. Now, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Times says in his 2 out of 5 star review, we see relatively little of RoboCop in this movie, perhaps because Peter Weller rebelled against the inhuman ordeal of wearing that heavy metal suit any longer than necessary. What we do see is lots of violence and action, lots of dialogue between minor characters that never pays off, and lots of humorous TV ads for the world of the future. The ads are funny, especially one that opens the movie. I didn't much like RoboCop 2, but I've got to hand it to them. It's strange how funny it is for a movie so bad, or how bad it is for a movie so funny. And Jay Scott of the Globe and Mail was one of the few prominent critics who admired the film, calling it a sleek and clever sequel. For fans of violent but clever action films, RoboCop 2 may be the season's best bet. You get the gore of Total Recall, the satiric smarts of Gremlins 2: The New Batch, in one high-tech package held together by modest B-movie strings. So really, that's all we've got. That's all the background info.
Wow.
I couldn't really find a lot of...
Let me tell you, the next one has a lot.
I couldn't find a lot of trivia on this, and also it seemed to me that the original RoboCop, that's where all the groovy history is. And there's actually a 6-part documentary called RoboDoc, and I think it's on Prime. And
Okay.
each episode's well over an hour long. From
Okay.
inception to release, it just goes through everything there is to know about RoboCop. RoboCop 2, I think, is a case of it was all about the script. The few little things I found out was that Miller was on set. Basically, they were editing the script on the set while they were making the film, which is never a good thing, really. I don't think that ever tends to work out. But that's the film we ended up with, for good or bad.
Well, we've seen this before with part twos. You know, I mean, this is what we talked about, the Die Hard conundrum. It basically, it's not a full rehash because obviously in the first we learn how RoboCop becomes RoboCop. We learn how Murphy is brutally murdered. They keep him alive. They turn him into this robot, and he goes after the people who basically killed him. I have not seen this film maybe close to 40 years. No, let's see. It came on 90, so less than that. So at least 30 plus, at least. And probably I saw it in the theater because at this time, I'm now of the age to be able to go to movies on my own.
Right.
But yeah, so it's been a long time. I saw it in the theater, and I don't remember if I liked it or not. It didn't leave a big impression on me. Here's the thing I thought was RoboCop 2. I thought the robot that fights in the first movie was the robot that fight in the second movie. That's how much I got the two confused. That being said, I did enjoy this for the campy B-movie sci-fi body horror that it is, where maybe the script doesn't have a whole ton of anything different. RoboCop getting ripped apart, the little interchanges of the commercials in between certain parts, and the violence is really up there. And they don't hold back the gore. Maybe it's because of the other journey we do. I found myself really enjoying this for what it is. Like you said, some of these action movies are just fun to sit and watch. And while this isn't reinventing anything, I did feel like maybe where they lacked, and I think we'll talk about it in the next movie too, what they may have lacked from the awe of the first film, because the first one you see, you're kind of like, holy shit, what is this? I've never seen this before. We're not surprised by it anymore because now we now know the lore of these characters. They just up the violence in both films. The violence just goes up. They more blood and gore, and they just kind of go for the over-the-top thing, which I got to be honest, I don't think I minded. I'm not sure how you feel about it. I did not mind some of the stuff we got. And again, it's 1990, so some of the fights at the end, and they're using miniatures. Yeah, it doesn't look dated, of course, but it was 1990. And they're trying to do practical stuff, so I appreciate that.
That would have been far worse if they'd have done computer work on it.
I agree with you.
Yeah, so you have to just accept that for what it is. My problem with this film, right, where RoboCop is satire and it's European, right? So it's got a European aesthetic to it. It's far gorier and far more violent than the second one. In my mind, the second one is more action and spectacle. See, this goes back to what the producer, John Davison, was saying, is that no one wanted to touch RoboCop 2 as a director because they just couldn't live up to... They were basically saying Paul Verhoeven is a fucking genius.
Yeah, he fucking killed it. Mm-hmm.
That's like a director now being tasked with directing Pulp Fiction 2, right?
Yeah. Okay, you're going to do Goodfellas too. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how the fuck do I do that? And I think that was the problem. Now, Irvin Kershner does a great job, though.
I agree.
But that's very American.
Oh, it's extremely American.
But yet he still manages to get some digs in there about the corporations and militarization that we, so he's...
Funny thing is, rewatching it the other day,
it
feels a lot like what's going on right now.
Yeah,
I was like, wait a minute, this is America right now.
Let's make American jobs great again.
Yeah.
That is a line from the movie.
I'm starting to think that maybe some of the stuff that we're doing here in America, the people who come up with their policies are just from watching 80s action movies.
Life imitates art.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my issue is you had a lot more satire in the first one, and I think the European aesthetic was obviously going to be more appealing to me, seeing so many Hollywood movies. And I do think it's more violent, actually, more brutal than the second one. Mm-hmm. And that is where, obviously, my sensibilities are leaning the things about that. That's the things I liked about the first one. So if they're missing from the second one, that's a problem for me. But like you, I probably last saw this when it came out, and I couldn't remember anything about it at all. I wasn't even sure if Nancy Allen returned.
No,
I wasn't sure who the villain was. I really felt like I was watching RoboCop 2 for the first time.
I did as well. I'm 100% agree with you. I was like, hey, I feel like this is a brand new movie for me today.
It doesn't do anything as good as the first one.
No.
Although, I mean, there's there's a lot to like at the same time. So I don't want to sound like I'm shitting. I'm not shitting on the movie at all. But, again, it's just got so much to live up to.
We've talked about a couple of the sequels now this year. We did Rambo 2. We've done Die Hard 2. Lethal Weapon 2. We've done Predator 2. We've done RoboCop 2. We've done some of the big boys, their sequels.
The biggest.
And they're hard to live up to the originals because the originals are so good. They come out of nowhere. You can't live up to it because a lot of it is we learned the myth building, right? So we know about John Rambo. So there's no way we're going to ever be able to go back and feel sorry for him anymore. Now he's got to know it's his further adventures. These are all the further adventures, unfortunately. And some of them are able to do what Die Hard 2 did, which is kind of rehash the original plot and change it up a hair. And some go for something different, which I think we'll talk about in the next one. Some try something different. They don't go for the same story again and again. And some of them work and some of them don't.
Yes. Sorry, before I forget, knowing what studios are like now from being in the movies for so long, I kind of get the feeling they probably felt Kirshner was a good idea for director because of what he did with...
The greatest sequel ever, in my opinion. He made The Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah. So I can imagine that they're thinking, well, they probably were nervous themselves about who the hell is going to... What chance have we got of RoboCop 2 being better than the first? And Kirshner, who elevated Star Wars... and made the best, not only one of the best sequels ever made, the best Star Wars ever made.
I agree with you.
So I can see their thinking, and I think he does a decent enough job, but I don't think he was really, I don't think the script, it lacks that, it lacks the satire, and that's what, and Verhoeven did the same thing with Starship Troopers, yeah?
Yes.
That's satire too.
Unfortunately, a lot of people missed it. they miss out on the satire, and they
do, yeah.
They take a dump on the film.
But where he's clever, of course, is you don't need to get the satire. You see,
this is true.
It's still enjoyable, even if you're not super smart like me. No, I didn't mean that. But no, if you don't get the satire, you still get an entertaining movie.
That was satire within satire right there.
Oh, so Kirshner does a good job, but I just think the script wasn't there. Although there's some good action, but I found it a little bit... The action's... This is the problem. Like, the action is big.
It is big.
But there's not that much of it.
Well, there's quite a bit of it. I know what you mean. What I do enjoy about this film, what I think Kirshner was able to do, and why I think this is a better film than a lot of people probably give it credit for. We will harp on this every episode when we do Dropping a Bruise. But until you've seen enough films to know really bad films that are poorly made by people who don't have real talent and don't know how to make a film, but have been given an opportunity and they fall flat on their face and they don't take any chances and yada, 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 on and on and on. You can start to appreciate now films like a RoboCop 2 as being a fun B movie. And what I mean by that is we have this young kid. He's swearing left, right, and center. He ends up becoming the bad guy at the end. Like, that was, for 1990, that's a brand new kind of thing that's happening. We don't have usually kids. A kid will swear once or twice in a film, and it's like ooh, it's funny. Like the little kid says something funny. But in this one, he's like, fuck this guy, fuck your mother. It's just like, he's swearing, fuck this, fuck you. He's telling people what to do.
He's not annoying.
And he's actually pretty. I actually thought he was pretty good.
Kid. Yeah. He
was very believable. We've got brutal. I mean, they went with the gore. I mean, when RoboCop wins the battle, he rips out the skull. He's crushing that. They're cutting people open down the center. Like, they are adding a lot. I mean, when RoboCop himself gets dismantled and they use the practical, and the practical worked so well because he looked robotic at that moment.
Well, that's Rob Bottin who did the thing.
Oh, I mean, it was fantastic.
And Phil Tippett.
It looked amazing. And so there was that part, like, it was very disturbing the way that looked. So there's over-the-top violence, but not just the usual, like, 1980s explosions with no real good violence. Like, when people are getting murdered in this thing, just blown away. Now, they go over the top. I think they were trying to be satirical with crime, but it didn't pull like a Verhoeven, because everybody's a criminal in this thing. They got a baseball team, like a little league team. It's robbing a store. Like, they got all kinds of things going on.
Well, I remember I really did like the intro to the movie where
the guy stealing the car,
just like the almost like the Chinese whisper of the old woman getting mugged.
Oh yeah, they keep passing
the guy
it. Yeah.
Getting mugged by the women. And then
they run away,
like
and
the
then
domino,
they break into the store, get this gun, these guns.
Yeah, then the domino effect of them eventually breaking into the guns and ammo store.
And now I know why other countries think that we have so many weapons. The weapons they pull out of that are all military grade. They don't sell those.
It's like a scene out of Commando.
It's crazy. I was like, where the fuck did they get these things? None of the sequels rarely have lived up to the originals. It's hard. It's very hard. Because, like we've said, most of those originals were not made to be franchise.
No.
The Terminator was not made to be a franchise. Rambo was not made to be a franchise. Predator, RoboCop. I mean, people have actually were like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this film. It's because they weren't made to be franchises. Some films are, but now they saw the money. They're like, let's give it a second. And of course, us as the movie-going public, we're like, yeah. I mean, I think the reason we're so cynical now about sequels is because we saw too many sequels when we were growing up. Everything seemed to have a sequel from the 80s to the 90s.
Like with like the superhero movies, the Marvel movies, you can have as many loose ends as you want as well because they, just cross-pollinate. We'll leave that here because we're currently writing a new Thor movie and we can put it into that, so whereas with these, they want to sequelize and franchise them, but at the same time, they haven't got that confidence, that level of, well, we know there's going to be another one, so that doesn't matter that we don't tie that up. Whereas these still need to be contained stories, but they need enough stuff from the previous to kind of make you feel familiar with it. And I had problems with, because almost like they were backtracking with RoboCop's knowledge of who he was and who,
because he goes and drives by the wife the one time. Yeah, that was probably a thread they did.
It's kind of like, look, this was addressed in the first movie. You're just kind of that sort of a bit uneven. Didn't really make a lot of sense. And
yeah, that part could have definitely been cut for sure.
Do sort of agree. Peter Weller, not the lead singer of the Jam. Peter Weller isn't in it a whole lot this time. And in fact, obviously, a lot of the time, that's a puppet of him. That's a animatronic of him. But that's a really good one. And it is quite harrowing when they chop him up.
Oh yeah, and then because when they're holding him, that face is just doing the whole convulsing.
And when he's lying
it's
on
very
the floor,
disturbing.
and it's just like a torso and his legs and arms, and there's some good stuff in here.
They reached for some things because they filled it with those. I mean, when the movie opens, before the Chinese whispers you're talking about, as the movie opens, some kid's breaking into a car, so you think RoboCop's going to show up, and all of a sudden this car puts these two metal
clamps,
basically seatbelts or clamps around him, electrocutes him, I think kills him, dumps him out in the car, and the guy's like, and then some guy shows me like, hey, the new so-and-so from OCP doesn't even drain my battery, and he just drives off with the guy laying there dead.
Fried.
I was like, holy shit. And then they do the whole futuristic opening of everything and how terrible Detroit is. And then every once in a while they throw in another commercial and you don't know it's a commercial.
Yeah, that's always
There's one guy sitting there
fun.
talking about how he didn't have the data or something like that, and then he commits suicide, and OCP's like, you should have our data. I love that part of the film. Like I said, it leans into what RoboCop 1 was. It tries to play with, RoboCop is, they're always trying to make another one better than him.
It's not sophisticated ultimately. I mean, Tom Noonan's great as Cat.
But they decide to jump into this fun, they're like, fuck it, we're going to add elements that's completely different than number one. So it will stand alone by itself. And I think that I probably appreciate now, and we'll remember this more because I think of the journey we've been on, not as we've gotten older, but also what we've done together for the last almost 3 years, where we've watched movies that are not well made. And now when you see what we've asked for is like someone, like I see this as what they did in the film Apex, where they brought in the mongrel montage of killers, right? We were just like, they filled some holes, and we were like, some of the best part of the film. I felt some of the best part of this film is those little intercut things and just the wild stuff they decided to go for. They used a lot of practicals, which I loved. The miniatures, you're going to see them. You're going to see them in both films if you watch them now. The special effects that used to back in the 90s that looked, well, they still look good then, but now we've gone so far into the future now that you notice this stuff now. Like we'll talk about with the Predators.
I mean, the stop motion stuff is done well, though. I mean, a stop motion, of course, but it's not bad. That's not because it's badly done. It's because of your knowledge of special effects.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to give a shout out to Tom Noonan as Kane. He's a great character actor. He's been in a lot of great stuff, and I forgot he was in it. When I saw his name come up at the start, I was like, "The fuck's he going to be in this?" Because he usually plays a very quiet, soft-spoken character.
He was the original killer in Michael Mann's Manhunter.
Yeah, but that's my point. But that kind of is my point. He's very silent. He's very sort of, he's haunting and everything. But whereas in this, he's kind of like this nutcase.
Yeah, almost a hippie.
Sort of a hippie evangelist almost, kind of vibe to him. He's kind of like this cult leader guy with this nuke drug that they're injecting into their necks and everyone's going crazy for. Like you say, solid B-movie stuff. It's just sillier and more kind of, what's the word? Maybe not, I don't want to use the word corny because the more I use words like that makes it sound like I don't like the movie. But it's kind of cheesier, kind of goofier version of what we got in the first one. And I think that is because they knew they couldn't really do it.
The only way they could have made a similar film is a different city, and OCP has moved there, and they're getting their own RoboCop. But maybe this time, similar to what they were doing. Here we are. We're doing fantasy.
Well, again, that makes sense.
But if they let's say it's New York this time, and it's a different cop. But this cop's a dirty cop, and they don't realize it. Now RoboCop isn't a man of the people kind of thing. Now we can have a different storytelling kind of idea. Which is what they were going for. They tried to say, okay, because one of the funniest moments is the two RoboCop 2 test trials.
Yeah, that's funny.
Where the one kills two of the people there, two of the doctors, shoots one in the arm, then takes his own life, and then another rips its helmet off to kill itself. Those are funny. Yeah. Some of these cops felt tortured by being dead and being in these robots, so they killed themselves. So they put, Noonan's character is the drug dealer. Eventually, the last third, they get him, they put him in this, and he kind of is he goes rogue and bad. And that could have been what RoboCop 2 was, and they just do that in a different city. Peter Weller's not in it, we get a different person, and then maybe you get what you got from RoboCop the original. Now we're telling the same story, but we're telling it differently. We're now telling it as, okay, it went well the first time. What happens when that cop possibly could have been a dirty cop? Maybe we thought he was a good cop. Now you get a RoboCop 2 where you could lean in some of the things, but now you can go to a darker version of it. Oh shit, we've created this thing.
Yeah, what you're onto there is, that came quite easy to you. So I don't know how it couldn't have come quite easy to them to just say to them to just say, why don't we just have every RoboCop movie is a different RoboCop in a different city? Because then, the locations themselves would inform the kind of movie you're going to get.
And the people in those movies know how it turned out for the other cities, and some may be cheering it, some may not want it.
But, I think they just try to replicate the first movie, but without Verhoeven.
Well, yeah, but without him, but also without the stakes of what the first has.
The overall tone of everything had to change because that was so Verhoeven, that movie. When you look at RoboCop, Total Recall, and Starship Troopers, you can tell they're made by the same guy, right? He's an auteur, you can tell. So that's going to be diminishing returns, whoever takes over, and that was just who had the fucking balls to do it. And the guy who directed the best Star Wars movie ever had the balls, and good for him.
And I think that's why this is a decent sequel, in my opinion, because, like you said, like Weller said, maybe not a good script, but they did try to pepper it with a lot of things that made it funny, that kept you interested, that changed so they knew it couldn't be RoboCop, so it tried to do its own thing. And, look, maybe it didn't hit the home run, but I appreciated swinging for the goddamn fences as opposed to just laying a dog shit on the floor.
Hey, they can't all be home runs, man, but that doesn't mean they suck either.
But at least they swung and didn't just go down not swinging.
Exactly.
Just took all 4 pitches, strike out, 3 pitches, strike out. So.
There you go.
All right, my friend, your feelings on, do you feel this film is worthy of being a sequel within the RoboCop franchise?
That's difficult because in the grand scheme of things, I don't think I'll watch this again. But I think it's a continuation, and I think you've got to give it credit for that. So I think I'm going to say it's worthy of being a sequel, but only just. This isn't like I'm ecstatic. I'm not ecstatic about it. I won't probably watch it again. I've seen it twice in 30 odd years. If Peter Weller wasn't in this, if Peter Weller and Nancy Allen weren't in this, fuck it. I'm out.
I wasn't a huge fan of Nancy Allen, but I skipped over that part.
You what?
We were having a good conversation. I'm not a huge fan of Nancy Allen. She was okay in the first, and the second one, she just shows up to show
Peter Weller's not great in the second. That's my point, right? He's not great in this either. No one is. But my point is, if you didn't have Verhoeven, Weller, or Allen, I'm out. That's just garbage then. So them two coming back kind of kept you in that world. I'm not saying Nancy Allen is. I'm not saying she's great in this, and I'm not even really saying she's that great a character to begin with. But she is his partner, and the partner is usually not that great anyway. So that's just that as a woman this time. But I give her props because I like Nancy Allen, and I love her in a lot of ways. And like I say, the fact that they're in it. Really, they're the glue that keeps it all together for me. Without them, and you haven't got Verhoeven already, I would be out. So it only just gets in there as being worthy for me.
For the first time in a couple months now, I'm going to say yes, I do believe it is, because I also enjoyed what it tried to do. I enjoyed that it took a swing and tried to be something different than trying to be just RoboCop. I appreciate it. I laughed a lot during the film, and I enjoyed a lot of the special effects, and I enjoyed a lot of the violence going on. And so for me, yeah, I think it is. Some of the other ones in the franchise, maybe not, but for me, this one, I think does. Now, where would you rank this in the 4-film series?
Well, I haven't seen RoboCop 3. I have seen the remake. I would go one. I don't know. It's hard. Obviously, I'm going to have to make this up. So I'd have to go 1, 2, 4, 3.
Okay. I would flip with you. I did enjoy the reboot because I enjoyed what they showed. Some of the actors a little bit more, and I love when they kind of really show his body fucked up and he sees it. So for me, this would be 3. It would be RoboCop, the reboot, 2, and then 3. 3's not very good. They should have stopped at 2.
You haven't got Weller, like I say, so I would have been out anyway. That's why I wouldn't have watched it in the first place.
All right, that moves us on to the blue corner. And our contestant is from 1990, Predator 2.
It's time for the tale of the tape. Predator 2 was released in 1990, written by Jim and John Thomas, and directed by Stephen Hopkins, starring Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton, Robert Davi, Adam Baldwin, and Morton Downey Jr. Made on a budget of $30 million and grossing $57.1 million at the box office. It holds a 6.3 rating on IMDb, with a 29 critics and 44 audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. On Letterboxd, Steve gives it 3.5 stars, while Scott also gives it 3.5 stars. The Predator returns to Earth, this time to stake a claim on the war-torn streets of dystopian LA in 20th Century Fox's Predator 2.
Los Angeles, 1997. It's the hottest summer on record. Pollution is choking the city. The gangs control the streets.
It has not been a nice day!
As bad as things are, they're about to get worse. Much worse.
Whoever killed him is gonna pay. I'm gonna finish it.
It has almost no weight.
But it cuts like steel.
Incredible.
Whoever did this took out 4 men armed with machine guns by hand.
You don't know what you're dealing with. Otherworld life forms, drawn by heat and conflict. He's on safari. Lions, tigers, the bears. Oh my.
Danny Glover, Gary Busey, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita Alonso, Bill Paxton. Predator 2. He's in town with a few days to kill this Thanksgiving.
Now, my friends, hold on, take a deep breath, maybe get a drink. We got some stuff to talk about here in the old behind the scenes. Now, the filming of the alley scene was very troublesome for the filmmakers due to the rough neighborhood. The alley was littered with garbage, most of which was used in the film and plagued with large rats. Local residents, angered by the noise created by the film crew, would throw bottles and paper bags filled with feces from windows at the crew in the alley below. Worst of all, the film crew found a dead body hidden among the garbage. Shane Han, crew member, is quoted as saying, "The most horrible place I've ever had to film in were the alleys in downtown LA. And Predator 2 was shot in a lot of those disgusting alleys. They were dirty and depressing and gross, with people peeing on walls. We'd be rigging something and there would be rats everywhere." Stephen Hopkins was given the task of directing Predator 2 after greatly impressing the studio when directing A Nightmare on Elm Street: The Dream Child. He had been given just 4 weeks to shoot and a further 4 weeks to edit the film, while also overseeing special effects work. This meant he had to shoot on one stage while the crew dressed the other, allowing them to shoot almost continually. Hopkins said that he managed because he was 28 at the time and required little sleep. The spear weapon that was used in the film disappeared and was reported stolen after filming was completed. We'll find out, as a lot of things were stolen after the filming of this movie from the set. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger said no to Predator 2 because of a dispute over money. According to producer John Davis, it was over an additional $250,000, which the studio refused to pay him. However, the director later stated that Schwarzenegger couldn't commit due to scheduling conflicts. So he was a part of Total Recall. The subway attack scene was directly adapted from the first Predator comic book series. The producers thought it was cool and wanted to use it in the film. In a backstory explaining Dutch's absence from the sequel, Keyes had learned of Dutch's encounter with the Predator and tracked him down to a hospital. Dutch was being treated for radiation sickness, thought to be a result of exposure to the Predator's self-destructive device. After hearing Dutch's account of events, Keyes and the OWLF team were sent to the jungle to investigate and study the site where the Predator detonated the device. They found evidence of a spaceship launch in the jungle, and the deceased Predator ship had automatically returned to the Predator homeworld. Dutch later escaped from the hospital and vanished, and Keyes believes he was still alive. Now, John McTiernan's fee after Die Hard 2 was $2 million. That's why he declined to direct this movie, because the executives wanted to keep the budget the same as on the first film. The film was recut and submitted for ratings over 17 times, according to director Stephen Hopkins, because of the more graphic shots of mutilated bodies, nudity, and decapitations by the Predator. The film was initially given an NC-17 rating, and there was brief talk to keep it that way, but this was ultimately believed to be detrimental to its box office, as NC-17 movies were precluded from being advertised in newspapers and screened in certain theaters. So by cutting around the explicit shots, often taking out somewhere between 6 and 12 frames, they were able to obtain the desired R rating. Hopkins said that no full scenes had to be cut due to violence, only for pacing issues. Now, with more pre-production time than the original, Stan Winston, Stephen Hopkins, and Lawrence G. Paul came up with ideas and designs for more exotic weapons, such as the retractable spear, the detachable pincers, the smart disc, the net, etc., for the Predator to use, to differentiate this film from the previous one. Almost twice as many weapons were conceived compared to the original movie, including some sort of jetpack, but only the ones that the team felt had a decent chance of being used in the story and were affordable to be constructed appeared in the movie. The brief scene with the hunting party was the most expensive to make in the entire film. Stan Winston's effects team had to build 9 additional unique Predator suits for just a few minutes of screen time, and we thank them for that. In 2020, Stephen Hopkins revealed that he met with Steven Seagal for the lead role in the film. Seagal wanted to play the character as a CIA psychiatrist who knew martial arts. Of course he fucking did. Fucking idiot. Hopkins passed on casting him, wanting the character to be an average Joe type. Hopkins had also envisioned Patrick Swayze playing the part. Keyes is the first character to ever use the word predator to refer to the creature on screen when he says, "We've prepared a trap for this predator." The word predators is also used by Isabella in Predators, but she's using it to refer to the human characters in the film, not the actual predator creatures. And it wasn't until the predator that the creature itself is referred to as predator again, with someone adding that the term hunter would be more appropriate. This is Gary Busey's first film after his devastating motorcycle accident in 1988, in which he suffered a TBI, or traumatic brain injury, that caused permanent and progressive brain damage. Stan Winston's team created several extraterrestrial skulls for the Predator trophy room, most of them unnamed alien species sprung from the artist's imagination. However, in a fun nod to the Dark Horse comic Alien vs. Predator, John Rosengrant and Shane Mahan decided to include an alien warrior skull in the Predator's trophy case. That skull was sculpted by Kevin Hudson and was reported stolen after filming. Motherfuckers are taking things left, right, and center on that set. There's no security. No one's got accountability on that on Predator 2. Among Grayback's trophies is a sword, dog tags, and a patch from the United States 2nd Infantry Division, which is on his left arm. Grayback being the older of the hunting party, who hands the gun to our star at the end of the film. Now, the spaceship seemed to be there as a kind of headquarters for the Predator aliens. Other than to hunt, no explanation is given as to their presence. Viewers have suggested that 1, each Predator was sent out to hunt. They all go hunting in various places at the same time or in close time frames in order to minimize the chance of being discovered. Once their hunt is complete, they return to the headquarters and head back into space. The Predator in this film was simply the last to complete his hunt. 2, the ship was there to collect the Predator before his hunt was complete because he wasn't following the ritual and was being too high profile. Now, Bill Paxton is the only actor to date to be killed by both a Predator and an alien. The gunfight in East LA was shot in 3 long days with the exception of the interiors of the building, which was shot on the Fox lot. The circumstances in LA were quite dangerous due to actual gang fights, stabbings, and shootings going on. The crew was actually protected by the Crips during the shoot. Ramon Vega's mistress is played by Terry Weigel, who was a playmate in the April 1986 edition of Playboy magazine. She had already made brief appearances in many films and series, including Marked for Death and Married with Children, usually as a sexy girl, before she was cast in Predator 2. In the behind-the-scenes documentaries, director Stephen Hopkins states that she went into the adult film industry afterwards. Not mentioned is that shortly after filming her scenes in Predator 2, Weigel sustained severe neck and back injuries from a car accident, and her career switch to adult films was because that allowed her to pay for her medical bills.
And to lay down a lot.
Well, there's that. Only in America. Now, besides the City Hunter and the Elder Grayback, the LA hunting party Predators consisted of Boar, Both, Guardian, Hippie, Ram, Scout, Snake, and Stalker. You're welcome. Director Stephen Hopkins found out years later that the movie enjoyed a particular cult success in France when making Under Suspicion with Monica Bellucci. Her boyfriend at the time, Mr. Vincent Cassel, could quote lines from the movie to him because there are regular Predator 2 nights in France. Hopkins himself had observed a similar phenomenon when living in Brazil, where the film would be screened outside in parks. It is true that in the original draft of the screenplay, Dutch from the original film was set to return and was going to lead a team to hunt down the Predator in LA. Contrary to popular belief, though, Schwarzenegger's character did not become the villain, nor did he cite a dislike for the script as his reason not to return that led to Dutch being replaced by Peter Keyes. That character already had a much smaller role in the original screenplay, but it was expanded after Schwarzenegger chose to do other projects and Dutch was written out. And finally, Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, in giving the film 2 out of 4 stars, suggested that it represents an angry and ugly dream. He said that the character's design had racist undertones where subliminal clues encourage us to subconsciously connect the menace with black males. That was what he said. I don't know. I didn't think of that. I never saw that as part of the thing, but you'd have to ask Roger when you get to heaven if he's there because he's no longer on here. So there you have it, my friends. Predator 2 and its long list. There's so much more that I could have grabbed, but it was not worth it. It was just like, holy shit.
I bet.
My God.
Sounds like you unearthed quite a lot.
It was like last month's Temple of Doom.
Over here. Yeah. Whew.
Now, I saw this movie in the theater because, listen, one of the first movies I put in on this series and do our top 100 films of all time was Predator. It is one of my favorite movies ever made. Absolutely love it. And until watching this again for the first time in 30 plus years, I didn't think I liked this movie much. I was wrong. Maybe now I appreciate it more. I actually really, really did enjoy this movie quite a bit. And I actually feel bad for it. Still doesn't, well, we'll get to it in the end where it ranks in mine. But I definitely think my score for it is higher than it probably previously was by at least a full star. Easily by a full star. I really did enjoy the hell of this. I really enjoyed Danny Glover as the fucking hero. Like, I almost was like, wait a minute. Murtaugh, you sit the fuck down. You let Murtaugh run the show. No, he was great. It was
more
a
like
fun
Riggs,
fucking
right?
movie. He's more the Riggs character, but I love in the opening scene. I mean, the opening scene is brilliant. We come up from the tree line, thinking we're in a jungle, and it's LA, right?
That's so good.
And then there's this big back and forth battle going on between gangs. But I just love that an entire police unit is out there with a SWAT team and thing. The Colombians are tearing them up. But not until Danny Glover shows up with his car. Can anyone do anything? I just thought this is so ridiculous. It was ridiculous, but it was enjoyably ridiculous at that moment. I was like, really, Danny? We had to wait for Danny Glover.
I mean, I'm in the sort of one man gang of people who I like all of the fucking Predator movies, not the Alien.
You know which one I don't.
Not the Alien.
I don't even consider those.
But I like.
I think Alien Predators ruin both series. I wouldn't put them in either.
But I like all the Predator movies. Predator is, well, it's a masterpiece, of this.
Agreed.
Film,
Tommy Tiernan made 2 amazing films back to back, Predator and Die Hard.
The second one, I always liked the second one, and I always thought the thing that stopped it from being great was Danny Glover. And then when I picked up the box set, as I mentioned earlier, when I rewatched them all, I'm like, he's the best thing about Predator 2. And there's a lot of good shit.
100%.
There's a lot of good shit in Predator 2, and I think, but Danny Glover is a revelation. In Lethal Weapon, he's old. You think he's old?
Well, yeah, because I'm too old for this shit.
Yeah. In this, he's just a total fucking gung ho sort of hero.
Well, when he grabs Gary Busey, I was watching it today. He slams him against the wall. You realize how much bigger he is than Gary Busey, and you realize I don't know if he bulked up a little bit, but it looks like he had some size to him in this film. And then he does that little slap his hands in front of his face. Like I was just kind of like, Jesus, this Danny Glover really is intimidating guy.
He really gives it his all, and they needed someone who would do that, and I would not have put money on it that would be him. So I always thought I liked Predator 2, but not loved it. But it's not one I've watched a lot. But I have watched it more than, obviously, RoboCop 2. Like I said, I've only seen twice. This I have watched over the years. Maybe I've watched it like 5 times in my lifetime. But the last time I watched it, which was obviously 2 nights ago now, I fucking really like it.
Yeah, I agree.
And like we're saying about what they should have done with RoboCop,
they do with this. We change
and
it
like
up.
as you pointed out, that introduction where it goes from you think you're in Vietnam, you think you're in the jungle again, and it's the urban jungle. So it's just so clever, like a clever moment. And then you just get a fantastic action set piece that would have just been great in any movie, except for the fact that they're fighting a fucking invisible alien from another planet in downtown LA. It's just fantastic.
I enjoyed the shit out of the beginning too. It's just, there's just so much visceral about it. And then I'm glad it didn't try to be Predator, the original. The movie that went with the original was Predators when they went to a different planet, and I appreciated that because that's a different change of it too. All the Predator movies so far have been pretty much different, which is why I think now we're getting this resurgence of it. With you got the Prey, now we got these other two coming out, because there is a marketability where the Predator is always changing. I still am hoping that one of these movies, the Predator wins, because after a while it's like, come on. At least in Aliens, the aliens wipe out most of the people, and then one person happens. Yeah,
well, that's just that'd be another great way to set up a sequel.
Exactly. But with this, we get new weapons. We get a completely different kind of Predator. The first time when the Predator gets injured, we see it fix itself. This time it's like cauterizing. It gets its arm cut off. It's cauterizing that. And then the ending where we get the fight on the ship and we get the skulls and we get the other Predators. That sets up whatever's come since then. This may not be as good as the first, but it's kind of like what we talked about when we were talking about Mad Max. Mad Max 3, Thunderdome, is probably the most popular in pop culture for references than the originals, because it's got, two men enter, one man leaves. It's got a famous song, it's got all these touch points that make it a good sequel. Because you think at this, now we got all these different weapons, and then, it'd be 20 years before Predators would come out, and then that's got a whole different set. Now we see there's even bigger Predators than the original Predators we know. And so it just changes up the lore every time. And then when Prey came out, we saw how older Predators, they've evolved. So we de-evolved them to what it would be like way back when. This is why I think this series gets it. And outside of the crossover, which is so disappointing because, the possibilities for that are unreal. They made an amazing video game of Predator and Aliens where you can be either the Marines, the Predator, or the aliens in the video game. They thought
they figured it out.
They figured it out. There's so much to enjoy about this film, and it takes a little bit more of what the first one gave us, and it says, okay, well, we showed you this the first time. Let's go a little bit further. Let's show let's show another skull cleaning. Let's get him up on top, raising above the jungle, he's above the concrete jungle. Gets hit with the lighting. There's just so many great little moments that you do forget about it because. Look, it is tough to beat the original. The original's amazing. And we might be talking about that in another season for something different. Because that movie, we think we're in a war movie or we're in some kind of special forces movie, and the next thing you know, there's an alien. I consider Predator 2 the second movie after you watch your first zombie movie. We now are ahead of everyone from this moment on. Predator, we're in the same boat as Dutch and his group. We have no idea what's coming. We learned a lot by surviving that with Dutch, and now we know exactly what to expect in Predator movies. And the great thing is we're ahead of these people. We're like, you're fucked. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the excitement of you're fucked. And you can start to get excited about what's the Predator going to do. It's a slasher movie. They're now slasher movies that we are rooting for the Predator, and they get a final man now. So they don't get final girls in Predator movies many times, but most of them it's final men. And it's what makes them so exciting, is because you just don't know when they're going to kill somebody, how they're going to kill somebody, in what cool way. And I think that is what makes them endearing and why it's one of my favorite franchises to be a part of, which I get excited about when I see
you've got a great
coming.
cast in this as well. As you mentioned, Guy Busey, Bill Paxton.
Oh, Paul Rubens, fantastic.
Always, when isn't he?
Busey's amazing. He's such a good villain in this. And your boy Adam Baldwin from Patrick Swayze movie Next to Kin. He was the bad guy in Next to Kin.
Adam Baldwin. You got Robert Davi, Maria Conchita. She's great. She's in a lot. She's in a lot of Walter Hill movies. Ruben Blades is who we meant. There's just a lot of familiar faces. All the action is done to a T. It's explosive, it's violent, it's energetic. You've got an unorthodox hero, which is always great. And like we said, the different setting of it being in the urban jungle. And then you've got obviously the secret government guys who come in, hey, the train sequence, man. The subway,
great.
Sorry.
Train sequence is amazing. Even the first sex scene we ever get in Predator, and it's the only one I think we have in Predators. We get that wild sex scene, and then the Jamaicans break in and they're going to rip this guy's heart out. The next thing you know, the Predator shows up and he's fucking people up, and then they show back up to it and they're all hanging upside down. It's just, it has all the touchstones of the original, but still doing its own thing.
Yeah.
It pays some fan service and it adds to it.
See, without skipping too far, this is where they get it right. This is what I'm talking about. Where RoboCop 2 kind of for me didn't. But this, I feel like I would imagine I probably like this more each time I've seen it.
I would agree. I actually think I have to revisit The Predator. Well, it's not my favorite, as you know.
Which one's The Predator? Is that the Thomas Jane one?
The Thomas Jane one, yes. So there's Predator, Predator 2. Predators, The Predator, Prey.
Right, okay. Yeah, I do get a little bit with the slight alterations.
But the one thing this franchise has done, and again, I think we talked about it when we were talking about the Equalizer and Taken. Equalizer, he's a predator, right? Like his job is to go from place to place and he equalizes. He makes the playing field level for the people who are being taken advantage of. So he can do this all over the place. Where Taken is like, I got a set of skills. You've taken my kids. You've taken them again. If you take them anymore, I'm a bad parent. You know, it's like he's kind of limited to what he can do. Where RoboCop is similar. Like if we're going to keep with the same character, after a while, it's just RoboCop and it's the further adventures. We're Predator, we can kill off a predator, but we can also show you at the end of this one, there's lots of them. And they're all over the place. And when we hand you that gun and we see all the other aliens we fought, we've been doing this all over the place for forever.
Well, it just fucks you up. It just fucks with you at the end, and you're just like, yeah, you thought you knew.
It's world building in this one. They added to the world building.
Yeah, like you said, though, right? When everything starts getting established in Predator 2, we know more than everyone else. But then at the end, we knew nothing.
We knew nothing. Yes. And they said, oh, you think you know
exactly.
more. You know, and it's why a lot of people don't give Predators the due deserve it should be afforded, because that also world builds. Now we're on a planet. Like as long as they keep adding to it, it makes it more and more enjoyable. Which is why Prey was so great. We're like, oh shit, we get to see him going backwards in time. Holy shit, what was that like? It just continues to add to the lore of this beloved character that some drop the ball on. I thoroughly enjoyed this. There's so many great moments when they're in the meat packing business and he throws that fucking retractable, basically a full circle boomerang that cuts everything in half. It cuts Busey in half. Yeah. And then eventually Glover uses it to cut his arm off and then kill him. And then, like you said, when all those predators show up, you think, no, man, he's fucked. But then you realize like they have an honor code.
Exactly.
You killed one of ours.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it?
Like you won. That's the hunt. You won. You beat him. We're not going to kill you. It's almost like they recognize him as like, you're one of us. It's almost like they're never coming back to kill him because they're like, you have earned this rite of passage.
Well, like you say, we've been lured into this false sense of security where we're like a step ahead and we know everything. And then that whole end chase, the chase scene with Danny Glover on the rooftops and through people's apartments and all that, and then you end up on the fucking ship and all these predators show up and you're just like, my mind has just been completely fucking blown.
And I just love, you'll get your chance. He was like, we're so close. He goes, he'll get your chance, because he realizes there's this gun. He's like, they've been doing this a long time. They're going to keep coming back. Well, I think we both are in agreement, but I'll ask anyways. Do you feel that Predator 2 is a worthy sequel in the Predator franchise?
Absolutely. This is high. This is pretty high up. Like everything we've just said, you know, it's familiar, but it doesn't necessarily elevate it. But just by putting it in a different location and setting, you're not as familiar as you thought you were.
Because they bust out brand new stuff. We bust out brand new weapons, and we're like, oh,
it's all about the Predator. It's all about, it's in the title. It's all about. Well, it's the further adventures of the Predator. Because if Dutch was in the second one, I'm not saying I would have been against it. I'm just saying then they would have been in the third one, and it would probably have stopped the franchise dead after that. So
because it becomes Die Hard. How many times can this guy be held up by the same thing over and over again?
By Schwarzenegger turning it down, that kind of probably helped.
It benefits the film, which is weird to say.
Yeah. So this is definitely, for me, this is a definite step in the right direction after the first one. This was a lot better than I thought it was. And a lot better than I thought it was going to be after all this time. After this many years, like you say, 35 years,
30 plus. Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I think what makes good franchises is when your sequels continue to world build, as we talked about in the Ape series. Every time you bring out a movie and it's adding to it, we already have a lore, but now you're giving us more and more and more, and it feels earned and feels like we're on the path that we should be going on. You're going to enjoy the film. So if you watch Predator, you go to Predator 2, it builds like, I really feel like all of them continue to add to the lore of these aliens that we have, that we enjoy watching this alien do what he does. Really enjoy this way more than I remember enjoying it before. So yeah, this is a home run for a sequel. Now here's the weird thing. Where would you rank this? And I'll do mine first. I actually still have this fourth. Predator's always number one. I don't know there's going to be a movie that comes out that beats Predator, because Predator was the first thing I saw, didn't know what I was getting into, and fell in love with it immediately. I think I put Predators 2, or Predators at number 2 because it has a similar vibe. I really enjoyed what they did with that. Then Prey, because Prey was brand new stuff. I like going back in time. And then Predator 2, and then The Predator. However, that being said, this is one of those things like when I talk about Tarantino films, I like all these films for the most part.
I know.
So them being 1 through 5, it's a slight probably to some of them, and honestly, there's not one I go, you know what? Fuck you, I'm never watching that movie again.
Yeah.
It's always like, no,
I know what you
I
mean.
would definitely, I would watch all these in a row.
Something has to be fifth or fourth. Yeah.
Something always has to be,
like,
yes, exactly.
I would so, right. So number 1 is Predator. Number 2 for me is The Predator with Thomas Jane.
Because he loves Thomas Jane, folks. If you ever listened to Dropping Bruce, it's a really man
so
crush.
Predator, The Predator, Predator 2, Predators, and Prey. That's what I'll go for.
All fair.
Like when I talk about how much I like The Predator, it's subversive, right? If someone said to you, oh, they're doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest meets Predator. That is what we get, okay?
That is what we get. We do get a mentally challenged group of people.
It's so
who are
politically
like,
incorrect,
they're going after the
right?
Predator.
Shane Black, Fred Decker, behind the scenes. I'm sure it was a mess to make, and they all fell out, and it just did not turn out how they wanted it to be. What they wanted it to be, but I had a blast. I've seen it an embarrassing amount of times, and but yeah. So Predator, The Predator, Predator 2, Predators, and Prey. That's where I would go.
All right, and now it's time for us to sort through the debris and decide who the winner of our sci-fi action sequel showdown is.
Let's go to the card.
And we kick things off with best action sequences.
Best action sequences.
Now, I actually think this is a harder choice than believed. I have been going back and forth between RoboCop 2 and Predator 2 before we did the recording and even during the recording. Because there's a moment in RoboCop 2 that maybe the reason I'm choosing it is because of my own sick dimension voice. Like why I would, if I wanted to put RoboCop 2 in, it's when RoboCop 2 shows up and his girlfriend thinks that when he's offering this little mechanical hand, he's like saying, hey, honey, I can fuck you with this hand. And she's kind of go, it'll take some time to get used to, but I'm sure it'll be great. And then he just grabs her face and twists her fucking head. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, that was unreal. However, I think because of the opening to Predator 2 and that subway scene, which I wish they didn't do so much flashing in it. I wish we'd seen more from the Predator's point of view, I think. But still, it's still an amazing scene. I think I have to pick Predator 2 for best action sequences because of just those 2 scenes alone. However, I do want to make sure I state it. RoboCop 2 is a much closer competitor in this than most of the times we do this. This has been touch and go until our conversation. I finally sat with one. But honestly, I could wake up tomorrow and be like, fuck, I chose the wrong one. And then the next day feel the same way again. So I'm still going to stick with Predator 2 for the recording.
Now, there is some good stuff in RoboCop 2, especially the climactic fight with all the stop motion, Tom Noonan versus Peter Weller. That's pretty great. And quite long as well. It goes on for quite a while. And, you've got the conference up in the, where Tom Noonan's RoboCop starts wiping everyone out. So there's some great stuff in RoboCop 2, but the beginning of Predator 2, the subway fight, the end chase are all amazing, and they're not the only action sequences. So they're just so good. I think they're dealt with so well choreographed, well lit. They're just so versatile and kind of scary, intense, gruesome. That's got to be Predator 2.
Best supporting characters.
Best supporting characters. This is going to be one of the first, folks, you're going to probably know immediately where we're headed with most of these. But I do want to say, unlike other times we've done this, sometimes there's a movie that just stands out over others. I don't want you to get the impression that one movie just stands out way over the other one. One movie's better than the other one. But there's still really good things in each. But for me, the best supporting characters, it really is Predator 2 because it's the RoboCop show. And then we get a bunch of characters moving in and out, and the kid's good, and Tom Noonan's good, but they're not in it a lot. And so we don't get to really sit with a lot of people. We're really there for RoboCop, where in Predator 2, Danny Glover's amazing. But what also makes him amazing is Gary Busey's an amazing villain. His team's really good. Bill Paxton it's Bill fucking Paxton. We got Rubens. We got Conchita. They're great. I mean, you have to have a good crew because we're obviously there for the Predator, but he doesn't say shit. And for me, Predator 2 is held together because of its star-studded cast that really delivers on all fronts, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think RoboCop 2, as you said, You said it all, really. The other characters they're pretty underwritten. This is the problem. They're underwritten supporting characters. RoboCop's not really in it as much as you'd hope. So although it's the RoboCop show, he's not in it enough. And the side characters aren't well written enough. So when you've got Gary Busey, Bill Paxton, Ruben Blades, Maria Conchita, Robert Davi, Adam Baldwin, and there's others.
Even Morton Downey Jr., who is a talk show host from America,
I know.
who plays this sleaze. I mean, he plays himself. He's literally playing himself in this fucking movie.
So, you've got a rogues gallery of great character actors supporting Danny Glover, who shouldn't be as good as he is. So, hands down, it's got to be Predator 2.
Funniest moments.
Now, funniest moments. Listen, this one for me is a slam dunk. There's just one film to pick, in my opinion. That's RoboCop 2. What RoboCop 2 does with its little inserts of commercials are fucking dark gallows humor, and they're funny as shit. And I laughed a lot during them. And I was actually surprised because it's the kind of humor that's right up my fucking alley. And I was upset that I had forgotten about this. This seems like this would be something I would be quoting all the fucking time, some of these things. And they were great. I know we're making fun of like suicide and certain things in it, but some of this stuff was just absolutely batshit crazy. And I actually appreciated it. The whole watching the two RoboCops, the first two renditions killed like just go haywire. One kills two people, kills himself. The other rips his own helmet off to kill himself. Like, there was dark fucking humor that I laughed my ass off. So for me, RoboCop 2 is probably one of the funnier things we've seen over this. Like, most of the movies you're watching, they're action movies. They're not made for humor. This one actually made me fucking laugh. Like, I actually found it very fucking funny.
Yeah. No, you're right. I second everything you just said, really. RoboCop there's a lot all the commercials are funny. And like you said, the
trials of RoboCop,
the recorded trials. That's not just that
even the reaction.
But that's
of the
what
old
I was
man
going to say. That's what I was going to say. It's not only is it funny that these people are like dying and killing themselves. It's just the OCP kind of executive putting his head in his hands, like
he's like $19 million.
Yeah, he's pissed off that they've spent $90 million and that this is an embarrassment. He's not worried about the fact that all these scientists are being massacred by these robots.
Not at all.
So yeah, everything you've just said, really. There's some one-liners and stuff in Predator 2, but RoboCop 2 all the way.
Most original plot.
Now, I feel once more, slam dunk for more original plot. We discussed it when we talked about RoboCop 2, where if it had decided to change up what RoboCop is, change a different city, different person, probably a much better film. Albeit, I still enjoyed the shit out of it. But Predator 2 world builds. Even though these movies are not the same, it's like watching Night of the Living Dead, and then you watch 28 Days Later. It's the zombie movie, and then all of a sudden, holy shit, zombies can do this. Like, it takes what you know and then says, oh, but there's more that we can do. And that is what is appreciative. We already know what Predator can do. We know what they're going to do. I mean, when he goes, he taps in his thing, he's going to blow himself. Danny Glover cuts his arm off with a brand new weapon. Brand new weapons are shown. All of a sudden, we realize that we see the ship. They've been collecting skulls from across the fucking galaxy. They've been doing this for centuries. And you're kind of like, holy shit. And they're not all the same Predator.
No.
Like, even when you see this Predator, and that's what I love about it, is they've looked at the Predators like, okay, humans to probably a foreign alien will look at us and go, they all look similar. But when you see the Predators, they look similar, but they're not similar. And I love that about it. Different heights, different everything. This is a world-building sequel that I never gave it enough attention and praise. So for me, though, most original plot, probably Predator 2. And again, outside of the apes, this may be one of the more original plots for a sequel that we've gotten during this series.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. The Predator 2 has got the best plot. And another thing we never really got to mention, really, was, I'll tread carefully, but it links to what you were saying in your introduction about Predator 2, is the Predator himself with the sort of bad guys of the movie. Because the Predator's kind of got dreadlocks, right?
Yeah, well, he's had them forever,
because you've got the dreadlock, you
that's
can't
like the
kill
most distinguishing thing about him too, right?
Can't be killed, and he's got the dreads as well, hasn't he? So there's all that. But no, if Predator 2 only had the world building end part, that would be enough. But it does so many other things as well. But just that end reveal is fucking awesome. To put it plainly,
it's a surprising, not necessarily twist, but it's a surprising reveal. You don't think it's
so. Funny. Yeah, plot wise, Predator 2 just can't be beat.
Best Action Hero.
Best action star. Now, I appreciate when they take your hero and they destroy him and then he has to rebound. So them ripping apart RoboCop again, I mean, if we had a best special effects, that would go to RoboCop 2 in a heartbeat, even though the suits are amazing in Predator, but the stop motion, the RoboCop when he's ripped in half.
Yeah, the craftsmanship.
The practical effects is it's unbelievable. But for best action star, it's Danny Glover. Danny Glover is the fucking man. RoboCop's cool, but again, it's a movie that's kind of got moving parts in it, and RoboCop is, out of commission for a while, and so he doesn't do a lot of action, and he just does the same old. He shoots people. But Danny Glover is leaning into this. He's stepping out of the shadows of Mel Gibson and showing, hey, I'm every bit as good. And you know what? I'm going to say it. He has a Denzel Washington turn in this. He has a performance worthy of Denzel Washington himself. And Danny Glover probably didn't get enough props for this, but damn, he is fucking good in Predator 2, and he was the best action star.
This is difficult, because I would say, I agree. I do kind of agree. I think Danny Glover is a revelation, but I'm going to go with RoboCop 2 on this one.
Fair?
No, hang on a minute.
You could be wrong, but you're fair.
Hang on a minute. Danny Glover is a revelation in this as an action hero. But I'm going to go with RoboCop is the best action hero. Not necessarily in this movie, but the character of RoboCop, to me, is a better action hero. So I'm going to have to go with Peter Weller's RoboCop.
The better movie.
Now, I think you folks know where this is headed for the better movie. But once again, I'm going to say Predator 2, but I would also like to illustrate that RoboCop 2 is worth a view. It does try. Like I said, it takes a swing. It is trying to hit a home run. It has got Irvin Kershner, who directed fucking The Empire Strikes Back. As Steve said, not just maybe the greatest sequel ever made, but the greatest Star Wars movie ever made. And that says a lot. So for me, it is Predator 2 because of what it does. Look at the original plot. Look at everything else we talked about. It does everything that you want a sequel to do. And unfortunately, it didn't get I think at the time, people weren't able to step away from not seeing Schwarzenegger in it because we were inundated with sequels with the stars being back in them. It was like being like Rambo 2 being someone else going out there to try to save the people, not Rambo. I understand it. But over time, you're wrong. I'm just sorry. You're wrong in that opinion. This movie actually would have been hindered by him in it, and we wouldn't have got what we got from it. And so it took me a while to come to this conclusion, but the better movie is Predator 2.
Definitely Predator 2. It sort of gets everything right. It's obviously got the budget, it's got the cast, it's got the special effects. It goes full out with the violence, and it just delivers, just ticks all the boxes. RoboCop 2, I would say, is a massive step down from RoboCop, but that's a high.
It's a high bar.
RoboCop is at such a high standard. Anything was going to be a lesser effort. It's not a piece of shit that couldn't measure up to the original. Like you've said, they give it their all, and their all just wasn't good enough. But it's still a fun watch, and it is a continuation. And you've got familiar faces from the first movie back, so it feels like you're in the same world. So Predator for the win. RoboCop 2 isn't too bad. That's all I can really say.
And the winner is Steve scores the Showdown 4-2 in favor of Predator 2, while Scott scores at 5-1 in favor of Predator 2. And the winner by unanimous decision is Predator 2.
So there you have it. Another sequel showdown is in the fucking books. Now be sure to check out our socials in the coming days for our monthly gourmet and horseshit recommendations, along with our latest inductees into our top 100 underrated films of all time as we're getting into 21 to 24. We're getting close. We're 2/3 of the way down for season 3. We've got the last third coming up, and there's some doozies. There's going to be some fun ones to do. I'm looking forward to them. But until then, for all of you mothers out there, have yourselves a lovely Mother's Day, and we'll see you sons of bitches next month.
That will do it for another action-packed movie showdown. Now you can join in on the debate and let us know who you had as the winner of this month's head-to-head cinematic battle by following the show on all its socials. Those links can be found in our show notes. And be sure to join us again in 2 weeks for our latest episode of Dropping a Bruise, available, just like this podcast, exclusively on the last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network, where you can find other amazing shows dedicated to such iconic action stars as Stallone, Lundgren, Van Damme, Schwarzenegger, and Seagal. The link to the network can also be found in the show's notes. We hope you'll drop in again next month as we pit two espionage action sequels against one another, as 2006 Mission Impossible 3 squares off against 2012's The Bourne Legacy for sequel supremacy. So until then, stay explosive, my friends.
This has been a Man with an Exceptional Beard production.